call the meeting to order. I guess Larry's home sick, I'm not sure about where Kit's at. The one thing that Larry asked when he called and said he was gonna be home sick is he asked if we could table the approval of the minutes. And I guess myself, I don't have an issue with that, just because there was a lot of things that had to do with him involved in there, you know, so he wanted to take a look at it. I'm not sure what anybody else feels about that. Anybody else have an issue with that? No?
It'd be fun.
Okay. Do we need to move on that? No, we're fine on that. Okay, the next on the agenda item would be floor coverings for the Memorial Hall. And just so everybody knows, we're redoing the Memorial Hall floor, stage, improving some of the boards in there so that we could take the duct tape off some of the holes. But now we need something to cover up the floor during wedding dances, things like that, kind of like what the school does, to make sure it lasts a little bit longer as well. And I see we ended up getting several bids for floor coverings, and they seem like they went everywhere. We're gonna get a pretty basic one if we decide to do this. It would be the floor covering and a manual, what's that called? Crank. And I believe the bids go from everywhere from $7,000 to what, about 12?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a copy of the bids?
We do on our computers.
Yep, I have it.
And like the first one, the SP&E, that one says it has a power winder. We wouldn't be getting that. You can just crank it in by hand.
For the covering.
Seam tape, we don't need that. We will just overlap it. Tape dispenser, we don't need that. So that would be quite a bit less than that one even.
I guess I like the idea of staying with the Bismarck one. If there are problems, it'd be easier to have them to come up and look at it or stuff like that, I guess. The other two are out of state.
What is your thoughts, Reese? This is your portfolio.
So it's a manual pull to cover, and then it would be a manual crank to...
Yeah, you would end up rolling it up. I know the school has one, and it's actually pretty easy to roll up in that. It takes one person to roll it up. It's nice to have two when you pull them out, just because...
Two people to pull out.
But even one person, it doesn't take too much. And it'll be placed in the corner of the gym, or in the Memorial Hall, so they just have to pull it out a little bit, and they can just pull it right out.
Sure.
The other thing, when you actually look at the cost of just the floor covering, the one in Bismarck is actually cheaper.
Do we need to pay freight, since it's in Bismarck?
We do normally pay freight when, if they deliver it out, yeah.
Because for $847.50, I would almost try and pick it up. Or someone could,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess the Noel's point that Bismarck having it local, I mean, that makes sense. I guess I know a little of it, but if the research has been done. Is it the same company that did the schools? Do we
I'm
know
not
that?
quite sure.
They were the company that Mr. Arenas from the school referred me to.
So more than likely.
He thought it was, he was not quite sure, but he believed so. The other thing is, they're the company that actually measured the court.
Okay.
So if it would not be measured right, I think it would be their liability on
Okay.
it.
And I know the one the school has is nice and thick.
How long has that been in the school?
Oh, it's been at least 10 years at least.
No issues?
No. And they just have a hand crank on theirs. Any other thoughts about that? And where, and this is coming from the Memorial Hall Fund? Is that correct, Joan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We have put some money away in the budget for this, for the roof. And then when the floors came up,
Oh,
we switched it to the floors. And the Legion is putting in part of
Yeah, the Legion
its
and
funds
the,
as well as the school.
and the school, yeah.
So that's for the cover and the work to the actual floor.
We actually, we have not really discussed the coverings at all. When we initially discussed to go ahead and cover it, it was just the flooring. It wasn't the covers.
Yeah, and quite honestly, I think we kind of just forgot that, you know, at least myself, is we put that new floor in and then we realized, oh no, we need something to cover it.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
What would it be at if we took the power winder, seam tape? Is there another spot where it says how much it would be without those things? Tape dispenser? And maybe we could even have someone go get it.
We can call them and talk to them.
But even with the freight, I wonder how much that'd be, about $8,000?
Yeah, saving about.
So,
Well, if that's the one that you guys are interested in, why don't we go ahead and call them and get a clean quote, and then you guys can just discuss briefly again on the 15th or 18th, and approve it then if you
okay.
Yeah, I agree with the Bismarck.
want, just so it's a clear proposal.
So should we move on that company then, or should we wait on it completely until
Either way,
we have more specifics?
I guess I would just say wait, because then if the proposal comes in and you like the way a different one looks, you're just gonna be redoing it anyway.
Okay,
So we'll just get the rest of the information, and then you
Okay,
guys
so we'll
can
just-
talk about it on the 18th.
we'll just table that up until the 18th. Anybody have any thoughts about one way or another about the floor covering? Okay. Okay, the next thing on the agenda would be bid for the city hall sign.
We received a bid on the signs that we've talked about, and it was right at $2,500, but then the forestry department has received a grant to redo the plantings out here in front of the brick wall. And so Commissioner Bauman would like to look more at completely redoing, taking the brick down and completely revamping a little bit more, so he was gonna discuss that tonight, so I guess that's maybe a tabled item also.
Okay. Okay, so we'll table that as well. And the next one is Bergam requests regarding parcel for Riverside Park.
This is quick and it's very, just kind of informational. A few weeks ago, I had a family come in. They had recently, I guess I don't know how long the land came into being theirs, but they had it resurveyed, and the parcel of land that they own crosses over Riverside Park Road. And so when they came in, they were asking if the city had an easement for the road that goes through the park and through their property. And so I had did a little digging, and I did find an easement for the walking trail. Back in 2000, Edie Sheldon and Margaret Plaster had that land. Or it was Margaret Plaster, and Edie wrote the easement on her behalf. But I don't have an easement for the road. So I contacted David and Commissioner Thomas, and they had wanted it on the agenda for tonight. Then in the meantime, David provided Century Code that states that all public roads and highways that have been in use for 20 successive years are hereby declared a public road or highway and confirmed and established as such. So that takes care of the issue of the road. The second thing that they had asked is since that parcel of land is unusable to them to build on because of the size and the road cutting it, they had requested possibly the city had a different parcel of land that we could trade with them. David said that too would be outside, as that would be over the $2,500 threshold, so that would not be an option either, in his opinion. Just information.
Does everybody understand where they're talking about? Going down to Riverside Park, I believe it's on the left side,
Yes.
by the sidewalk.
Yeah. It is lots 1 through 6 of block 13 in Park Addition.
So is there anything we need to move on that?
No, it's just information that had come through. They were requesting some more information, but then after discussing with the attorney and up at the county also, it's like there's not a lot that we can do for them at this time.
Okay.
Do we document that that road's been there, just to clear this up? Cause you have the documentation for the trail easement, so we documented that the road had
Well,
been
we
there
don't-
for 20 years.
Well, I guess they just know that it has been there for
Okay.
20 years, just because some people have lived here 20 years. I haven't been. So anything that's been like named or an established roadway for that length of time, then it just kind of becomes.
Okay.
There was a length of curb and gutter that was installed in that area.
There was. And the road is being paved this summer, asphalt.
Anything else? Anybody?
Who owns that land now?
Burgums, it's a relative of Margaret Plaster, I
Yes.
think.
John Burgum's daughter.
Yep.
But it's B-U-R-G-U-M for the paper.
Oh, okay.
B what?
The name is
B-U-R.
B-U-R-G-U-M.
Oh, okay, we have BBR.
See, Gordon Burgum got a lease on that land from the railroad. He had a barn down there and a cow and the whole ball of wax. And then eventually the railroad asked him if he wanted to buy it, and that's how he got it.
Oh, okay.
He got the land, and then his daughters, Edie and Margaret Plaster, got it. Now they gave it to their brother's daughter.
Oh, okay.
That's who owns it now.
Oh, we all good with that? I guess I skipped one here. We'll go back to the North Dakota Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center. Sorry about that. Request for a sewer fee exemption and reduction. And what we talked about here is, this is where the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center does their watering during the summer. The water doesn't actually go down their sewer. So it's not a situation where it's building up or using the sewer for this. So they were asking for some sort of reduction in their fees. We've already done this with the churches as far as commercial rates are concerned, because they're doing quite a bit of watering as well. And what we came up with was, and we can talk about this however we like, but 50% decrease in commercial rate. What ends up happening is their bill is normally around $70, for the most of the year. And then all of a sudden in the summer, because they water, it jumps up to about $200, $250. Yeah, so we thought if we went to about 50%, it would even it out a little bit more and keep it at about that $70 range, or maybe a little bit more than that. But we thought it would be a fair way of doing it, because that water isn't going down. They're still paying for the water, but that water is not going to be going down the sewer for commercial rates.
So would that be from just like June to September during the watering season, or
Well,
is this year
what we
round?
did is we would do 50% throughout the year, and then that way, evening it out, it would end up being, it would end up averaging around $80 a month. So, and right now, their bill is around 70, 75.
Yeah, on a normal, it ranges anywhere from 50 to 70 normally.
Yeah. And now, Joan and the office people will have to work on that if we decide to accept this, because I guess when they punch it into the computer, we've got to figure out a way to do it. So we might have to skew it a little bit. How I'm explaining it might not be exactly the way they're able to put it into the computer, but that's what we're trying to do anyway. But what we'll need is, if everybody agrees to that, to a reduction in the commercial rates, is we'll need to have a motion by the city commission. Is that fair?
So to calculate it, to go forward and figure it out.
Yeah.
This is a reduction in what is normally charged to them.
And the reason I was dealing with it is because it's part of the water and sewer portfolio. So I went out and talked to them, and same thing as what we did with the churches.
With the churches, though, they just got the flat commercial rate. They
Right.
weren't charged the additional water rate,
Right. Yeah, right.
so. there's a little bit more.
I would make a motion to discount the Lewis and Clark sewer 50%, or at least do the calculations.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I will second it.
Any comments, concerns, suggestions?
It is a rest area though.
Yes, and that's, we took that into
So
account.
it's used quite a bit
Yep,
differently than
yep.
some commercial building that's not open on Saturday and Sundays. Are you opening a can of worms that if I'm only open 3 days a week, why should I have to pay the commercial rate?
And that's why we didn't drop it any further than that, is because we didn't want to drop it any lower than that $75, $80 that they're already paying. We wanted to keep it there because it is a rest area year round.
The sewer rate is based off of the water use.
I understand.
So they get an additional $10 for every 6,000 gallons of water use. So.
I
they'll
understand
still
that,
do
but when I was on the commission, what we had to go through to give them water and sewer,
Oh.
and we had it, that was just, yes, don't worry about it, we'll pay our bill, and now, so I guess as a citizen and being on the commission when, what the commission went through to give them water and sewer and become part of the city, it bothers me a little bit now that, state takes over and we want a reduction right away, so that's just a personal opinion of somebody who's been there and done that.
Any other?
If I may, we are not opposed to paying for the usage of the sewer. And I don't think that's what we're arguing about. It's the argument, the point that we're making is that we're watering the lawns to keep the facility looking good for those people that come to the community of Washburn, visit our gas stations, visit our restaurants, and we want it to look good. And that water that goes on the lawn to keep it green is not taxing the sewer system, and so we're just asking to pay our fair share,
Yeah.
I guess.
Their water rates are remaining the same, it would just be a decrease in their sewer, commercial sewer.
But you can't measure how much goes down the rest area. So
Well,
you're-
one thing we can do is we can see what was happening before they started watering, even in previous years when they weren't watering, and we can tell where it should be approximately, and that's the rate we went to.
Well, just
But
my
I understand
opinion.
your concern, that's.
I'm just a citizen.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Reese?
Aye.
Motion, aye,
Aye.
and aye. And the motion carries. And I think the next one would be Jasper. And we had a question for you too, Jasper, before you even start, as far as the light down in the cooler. Is that something that we've already moved on? As far as that part of the project already, or how?
It's not part of the project, but it was discussed, if I remember correctly, as something the city's interested in doing. I think you need to, I guess I wasn't here when Otter Tail came in. Did they say that they were actually gonna provide a price to the city for doing it, or?
I
Okay.
think they just needed more, when we're ready for it or when it goes, we were to get back to them and get more direction, give them more direction as to what we wanted.
And just so everybody knows what we're talking about, is when you go through the coulee here, it's just pitch black at night. We're talking about, while this construction's going on, is putting one more light in the middle, so it lights it up a little bit for walkers. Because it gets a little scary for some people that goes through there. Not myself, but others.
So since that area of streetlights is Otter Tail owned, it's kind of on them to
Okay.
facilitate getting the city a price and even then agreeing to the work, where, the work down here on Main is, city owned, and, we can drive that a little bit more.
Okay.
I think Kim had some more information on it, numbers on it, but it was kind of dead in the water for a while, so I can ask him
Okay.
if he got anything formally or
Then
get
maybe-
something formally.
Yeah, and then we can maybe move on it in the next
Okay.
meeting. Okay. The next one would be the sidewalk bid for repair by the tunnel. And that's up by Captain's Cabin, that is 83.
Kim has been looking at this, Zimmerman has been looking at it when he is sweeping the tunnel. You can see that there's a pretty good hole there. We thought that possibly it would get done last year when we were doing the sidewalk repairs last summer, but that did not go through. That was tabled. And so now this is still at an area. This was originally done through a Safe Walks to Schools grant. It's the tunnel that connects the one side of the highway with the other, and we do have a lot of kids and residents that use it to access the town, to keep it open so they're not going across the highway, so. I think Kim had just been talking to a gentleman and he wrote up a bid for him, and so that was just one bid for the repairs for that area of the sidewalk. No other areas in town, just that one. It's an isolated repair.
And I can see that it's obviously kind of a safety issue,
It is.
you know.
Mhm.
Someone comes around there with a bike or something, that could be a bad deal.
Do you think we could ask Knife River to give us a bid? Since you know they're local.
Well, my only concern with this is because I know last year, we ended up going with getting all kinds of bids from different companies, and it ended up being more expensive than when we first started. And then we still don't have it done. You know what I mean? And I'm not against getting more bids, it's just that at some point we have to do it.
But I agree, it needs to get done sooner than later. I mean,
It's that same bid that you looked at.
Right, it was actually a pretty good price, I guess, in my mind, and this is the contractor that will be in town for the street project to do work, so I assume they're just gonna fit it in when they, when they mow the town.
It's Giovanni.
Yep.
And where are the bids for the previous sidewalks? Has anything happened with those?
No, and we were looking to probably try to use Giovanni for that too. So they will be doing, they'll be in town doing sidewalks, curb and gutter. I think this is I think this would be a city paid item is
Mhm.
why you're presenting it separately.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about this, I had another conversation start last week regarding lack of handicap access to the family fishing pier down in Riverside Park. So could that, there's a gentleman that likes to go down there to fish, and when he had his wheelchair go down, he had a very difficult time coming back up just because of the incline of it. So would that be something that possibly you'd wanna see if they could take care of that also?
You know what I think with that is, shouldn't that almost be part of the
Riverside
Road project?
Can it?
Just, that needs to be fixed, because
It does.
we can't have somebody that wants to go fishing not being able to get down there.
You can get down there, just can't.
Yeah, or get back down, you know.
You can fish forever.
Yeah. But we definitely should get a bid from them, and maybe a bid on those other sidewalks that we've all been talking about.
Right, but there's nothing existing there going down to the fishing pier.
No, they'd have to.
Yeah, there is.
There's gravel. I was just down there with my skid steer a little bit ago. I took the weeds out again. But it's
It's
soft
a gravel
gravel.
path, right?
It's a gravel
Yeah.
But
path.
if you're on a wheelchair,
Right, when we put that in, when I worked with Game and Fish, it's supposed to be handicap accessible with assistance.
oh, okay.
But still, it would be either put millings on it and compact it, or asphalt it, or,
I can take a look at it too.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think we could, as a city, we could probably get ourselves into trouble if we don't attempt to do something to make it handicap accessible if someone's telling us about it. So,
Well, for every inch that you go up, the inclined plane must be 12 inches long. So if you go up 2 feet, you're gonna have a long inclined plane. And
Mhm.
from what I see of that, I don't know if that's feasible.
It's gonna have to keep going back and forth, I suppose.
Yeah, I would have to,
Well,
Yeah, it would have to
that's
be.
why I wanna look at what's there.
but I would talk with Game and Fish, because when we put that in, he said that that site was okay even with the slope, as long as it's with assistance. And that's, maybe we should look at a sign to post there, to say handicap accessible with assistance.
But I think though, since it's been brought to our attention, is if it's not completely handicap accessible, I think that we can still get ourselves into trouble, you know, just because
Yeah,
someone's telling
that's
us that they wanna use it and they can't, you know?
And it would be the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And it would be.
And what we're doing now is we're trying to get a lot of these sidewalks that way as well.
Sure. At the time, we were just trying to make it,
Right,
you know, cut the cost a little bit.
yeah,
And if Game and Fish said that was all we needed, then that's
yeah,
what we did.
yeah, no, that's
So
true.
you're looking at
So, what should we do with this sidewalk? Is, whether it's now or later, we're gonna have to get it fixed.
Is there a time frame on that bid? Or did it just say? Doesn't show a time.
I assume they'll do it this summer when they come down.
Yeah, it is a safety, definitely a safety issue.
And
Do
they're.
they look at, if there's a washout under there, that almost looks like it broke away and there's a hole.
Yeah.
Is there a washout issue?
It could be now that, once the hole started. I haven't actually walked down to it myself.
If it
Yeah, it looks
happened
like there was a
because of-
hole underneath there.
Broke away.
When we did the Safe Routes for School a couple years ago, it was kind of the same thing down in that area. There was a lot of washout and broken up pavement, and I think there's some drainage issues down there too, so maybe it's just.
So might there be a situation where we almost need like a little culvert?
There is a
There?
culvert
Underneath there? Oh, okay.
And I did call about warranty work last year, and it's no longer covered. That was with it was a DOT grant, and then, so it wasn't covered under a DOT type warranty or the contract warranty.
Well, I'm gonna move that we hire Giovanni Construction to tear that out and put new sidewalk in that 22 by 22 area because of the safety issues.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I'll second it.
Okay, any comments? suggestions?
Would you guys consider putting a temporary patch there, just, because it might be, what, a month or so, yeah? I
Oh,
mean,
in
just
the
for-
meantime.
in the meantime.
Yeah, I definitely think we probably would want to,
Here, about
until they tear it out, you mean?
5-6 years ago, I went to GRE and I got like 25 buckets of this
Okay.
fly ash patch. And it's over here in the building. It's a matter of just mixing it up and just dumping it down. It's like a fly ash concrete. It's what they used over in Desert Storm to patch the runways. And GRE had like 500 buckets. They allowed me to donate 25 to, I think it's 25 or 50 to City of Washburn. So-
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea, as long as there's nothing sticking up that would cause an issue.
And that's something that Brian, Kim, and Adam can do. Hopefully.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Reese?
Aye.
Aye.
Noel? Aye. And then will you get a hold of, or I'm not sure who, whether it's Joan or you, will you be able to get a hold of Giovanni and maybe somebody else as far as getting some estimates on the sidewalks we've already talked about?
Yep.
And also look at Riverside Park about handicap accessible, which I know will not be an easy task.
Yep.
Do you have to officially rebid the entire sidewalk project?
No, I'm hoping to just get quotes.
Last year, we actually did it in the paper and for the sidewalks.
Okay. Okay, Jasper?
I do have the contracts and notice of proceed for the 2016 Silco project, Marvin, FYI. I'll just leave it for Joan to get signed. Kind of the big thing I have tonight is a task order for the raw water intake alternatives evaluation. I don't know if you guys have a copy of that. Okay. Give a little bit of history on this. It kind of goes back a long ways, but I'll start with kind of where the city ended up getting some grant money for this project. But I guess in 2009 and 2010, what was done, these guys did a big water treatment facility improvements project where we redid the water plant. With that, there was also a portion of the intake. I think we redid the roof, new pumps, and then put an intake screen out in the water. So there was work done to the existing intake. It wasn't like a complete redo or anything at that time. But so, you know, over time, work has been done to try to get some grant money to get the city a new intake. At times, at lower water levels, the intake doesn't get water in it. I think it was either last summer or the summer before, the core went down to about 13,000 CFS, and Adam was just barely able to pump enough water at that time. So it is a real issue. So what we originally looked at was doing a collector well project, and that's what the state originally gave the city a grant for. It was a $3.6 million project, 50-50 grant, so that you got $1.8 million in grant, and then the city would have to come up with $1.8 million. Well, we realized at that time that was just too much to ask for the citizens as far as raising user rates to pay for that additional. So we went back and asked the state for 75-25 grant, and well, they didn't come through on that, but they did give the city an additional 15% to make it a 65-35 grant. And through that, kind of negotiated with them that, hey, maybe the collector well idea maybe isn't the best approach for the city. So we got them to change the language in your grant contract to allow you to do an investigation. And we've kind of been sitting on this a little bit to see kind of where the Red River Valley Water Supply Project goes, and the reality of that is it's not moving fast enough to
We won't have it for 8 years.
well, no. It's not moving fast enough for you guys to utilize your grant money. So, this has been going on for a couple of years now, and the state's been kind of putting some pressure on Joan and calling me, asking, where the city's at with this, and, basically, are you gonna use the money or are you not? So, I guess in front of you tonight is a proposal to do the, what was called the stage 1 in that grant, which is the evaluation to determine the best method to correct the low water issues with the existing intake.
So you're not saying the collector well isn't going to be the option, you're saying that you're gonna do a study to find out
Yep.
if it's the best option?
The best option, and look at some other options, whether that's a new intake or you're trying to utilize the existing one in some way. Just look at it from back out a little bit and look at it
So like
from
it
a
says,
big picture.
$3.6 million intake project, which means we pay $1.1 million, but that was back when the prices were very high. Do you think it would be less now?
That's actually, that number is a few years old, so,
maybe-
and I don't know that competitive work for putting in intakes is,
Not a whole lot of it.
it's not a, I mean, but we don't know, that was the price for putting in a new collector well. And through looking at all these different options, we'll put cost estimates together for each one, so it's not, you know, and with that cost estimate, we would then, you know, look at what's gonna happen to your user rates, you know, which I think is ultimately, you know, what the city is gonna want to
And
see.
this would be paid for by user rates
Correct.
increase eventually, if that was the case.
Yep. And even this study would be, I mean, it's, so you can use your 65-35 grant to do the study, and
Do the study.
the rest comes out of your water fund.
We'd have to come up with 15,000 a month.
It'd be, I think it's like 18,750.
Okay.
Say, Keith,
So just to give kind of an example, I guess, is we did this, this was a capital improvements plan, so it's something similar to what this study would end up looking like. This was done in 2012 for the wastewater treatment system, where we did the study and looked at the build out of your wastewater lagoon system and what projects there would be to, in this case, it was, we ended up doing one of the projects out of here already. It was kind of more of a maintenance project to kind of get things up to where they should be. And then in this study here, it outlined a couple, you know, additional projects that would, you know, if you guys do see a boom in population, or if the regulations get more strict and you have to make some changes, this kind of is your outline for doing that. So I guess I just wanted to.
And would we know how, before we even, let's say we did the study, would we know how much user rates would go up before we actually would do the project?
Yeah, you mean like an actual intake project?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be part of this.
Or are you talking about the study
No,
for
no,
this task
no,
order?
just the intake, the large project.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely. That would be-
Yeah, that's big.
You know, that, there's basically three things to it. An alternative, how much that alternative costs, and what the user rate increase would be.
Okay, right?
I have some questions. This was my portfolio when that plant was redone. And there was questions, and I was one of them, but why not put that intake out in the water farther so we wouldn't run into this problem? I don't know if you were here at that time,
I wasn't, but I can answer that, because
okay?
the existing well isn't deep enough. So it doesn't really help to put the pipe out further.
But if the well would have been dug a little deeper,
Originally, back in the 70s,
oh, we couldn't dig it now?
well, that might be an option we look at.
Because, I mean, every time we came up with something about the intake, we got shut down once it was, the bridge was in, abutment was in the way, it would have to be moved. And I've never been down there under the water to look at it, in other words, but we suggested digging the well deeper, and then you could lower the intake out in the river, and it would be less expensive than whatever. And so, I'm concerned is here we go again with something that was kind of done when the plant was redone. You follow what I'm saying? Is that, well, no, we can't do this, we can't do that. It wouldn't do any of it now.
I think project funding played into it as well. You guys only had so much money at the time to do a project. And
So now it comes back for another study, and that study was done once. That you either had to dig the well deeper if you were gonna lower the intake, or go down under the river and then,
we certainly plan to use all the old information that we have, right, including, we did like a desktop look at, you know, collector geology in the area for collector well sites, and we're gonna look, you know, we would incorporate that in, you know.
well, it just seems a little expensive when a lot of this was done originally on the intake, the well, the lowering of the whole works. Now we're gonna do it again for $53,000. I mean, it's not, you don't get the money in your pocket, but I guess all this was discussed and hashed out, and there was, every time we come up with something, it was shot down. Now, oops, maybe it's gonna work, but now it's gonna cost again.
I guess said.
I-
It would
Just
have, I mean,
something that I wanted-
but to do a whole new intake, we know would have cost a whole lot more. I mean, we-
Now, sure,
we only stuck about $150,000 into the intake at that time.
but if it would have been done in the first place, lowered the intake and dug the well a little deeper, the problem would be solved.
But then you would have added, potentially $1 million plus more to the project, you know, I mean, I don't,
What's this gonna
the project funding wasn't there at the time.
What's this gonna
And I
cost?
think
But
Ray,
you have a grant to do it now.
yeah, I think Ray has a good point that, you know, if we do this study, it'd be nice so we have a permanent solution, you know, and then that way we'll know exactly what we need to do. Not saying we have to go do the project, you know, but we wanna make sure we solve the problem as well.
So this study is the first step into getting that grant, Correct.
It would be the first step in utilizing the grant.
or utilizing the grant, sure. 'Cause we've already been awarded it, so it seems pretty obvious to.
And once, I think that you're running the risk, I think he told me 3 years, which would become next year, that if you don't use it, basically they're gonna request it back.
We're really close to losing it.
So,
They
but
call
I
a lot.
think if you, yeah, they do. Joan and I really like the guy.
They even called me.
Yeah.
Sometimes we pawn him off.
Yeah. He's a nice man, but, yeah.
So I think, you know, if you do choose to do this study, I think it would show that you're proceeding and, you know, that you're not at risk of giving it back. You know, if you don't feel like you wanna do anything with the intake, it is what it is, then, you know, you wouldn't do this, and you would then write them a letter and, you know, give your grant money back. I think
You know,
those are your two options.
My concern is, you know, and I'm sure with a lot of other people, we're doing the roads, you know, we're having all kinds of specials, this and that. I'd like to kind of know what the rate hike's gonna be per month, because if it's gonna be astronomical, you know, per month.
I guess my opinion of it, and I obviously don't vote, but until we do a study now in 2016 that tells us what we would potentially be looking at to do the work and make it a permanent fix, we won't know what the rates are going to be. We see a lot of changing in the river. There's a lot of different stuff that comes down with the knife. I know Adam's always adjusting
Yeah.
and going, and you know, maybe even if we have the funds to be able to do a study and it's a less impact to the residents, that would definitely be a benefit. Otherwise, in a couple years down the road, if, you know, if that water level gets down there again, then we're going to be just footing the bill for all of it in kind of a hurry, trying to get it done. So this would be kind of like preventive maintenance.
So
Preventive
will this
planning.
rate hike be like a bond over 20, 30 years?
Well, we
that type
wouldn't
of
know what
thing?
the rate hike was until after he's done with this study and tells us, and then you would be able to choose what you wanted
Yeah,
to do.
it looks like what it's going to be though, is gonna be around $1 million on the citizens. Maybe a little bit over.
I'm not even gonna speculate, because it could come up
Well,
with an
I-
option that's.
I can, no, but I'm just saying, with your numbers, it can't, you know what I mean, if it's 3.6 million and we're gonna have to pay for, you know, 35% of that, you know,
But what if it ends up being $1 million project?
well, that'd be great. I'm
Right.
just saying, worst case scenario,
Yeah.
you know.
But I think,
But
you know,
at
this
least-
portion's just for the study of it though.
Yes.
Yeah.
At least then you have an informed decision about whether or not to, you know, give back $2 million worth of grant money.
Yeah, my only concern is that we're doing all these projects, you know, and, you know, another $1 million water project. At a certain point, people are gonna say, you know, this is real money, you know.
With the 15,000 or so that it would cost to do the study out of pocket, like, we have that in our user fees already, so it wouldn't be any,
It's like comes out of user fees.
I guess I would motion that we go ahead with the study.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Okay, Reese?
Aye.
Aye.
And I.
The only other thing I had is, with the Garrison Conservancy District last week, but I would prefer to see the full commission here to kind of give an update on what they were here for. And I don't know if you still have those folder.
I do.
Maybe we could give them to them.
Sure.
Maybe at least look through it, and I don't know how many they left with us, but it would be
I can
nice
just
to.
make copies of.
Okay, they could get that to the other commissioners so they can at least hopefully look at it before the next meeting, and then.
We had a meeting last week about the,
It's the Red River Valley Supply Project. I guess the real quick summary would be they came here to, they have to go to every potential user of the Red River Valley Supply Project who could potentially use water off the pipeline that will supply water from the Missouri River to the eastern side of the state.
Can you guys all hear?
They're looking for,
I can hear him because he talks to the wall.
so,
Nice enough.
so they were here, they're looking for participation from all the different users along the pipeline route. They want you to allocate, a certain amount of flow that you'd be interested in, and then you would have to pay for that allocation, and it's sort of a guarantee that, if the project is constructed, that you would be provided that amount of flow, so.
They want to run a pipeline from, let's say, Washburn to Fargo.
Yeah, they got the wells dug already out here in the river,
Supply water for the eastern part of the state. Sure.
but they don't know which way to run it. And then the best part of it is, they want good water, and what are they gonna do? Dump it in Bald Hill Creek, north of Valley City, that's the plan, one of the plans, and then run it all the way down the Cheyenne River. And on in to Fargo, in that area. So, was gonna go down 94 to start with, wasn't it? Talk about it?
That was one option they were looking at.
So they've dug wells on Shawls, Nesses, Obergs, South.
Test wells.
Well, still a dug well, right?
Right.
The hole in the ground goes down on the river, that's a well. If it's dry, it's just a dry well.
Okay.
And does Washburn have a shot at getting allocated some of that?
Well,
money?
we can. The only problem is I know Jasper doesn't like to hear this, but it's years and years down the road.
Well, it's dollars and cents now.
So the planning horizon for this project is out to 2075. So they're asking the city to kind of look at the future of Washburn and what does that entail, and
What size was that pipe gonna be?
it's probably gonna be like a 60-inch.
60-inch, 5-foot pipe.
So it's big. I mean, the big thing Washburn has going for it is it's already on the river. There's lots of users going east that, don't have a good water source, so they might be more interested than
Wouldn't it be
Washburn.
cheaper just to drill down and borrow it from the Chinese?
I was gonna say get a penny a gallon for every gallon that goes downriver.
Yeah.
For Washburn.
So do you guys want that emailed to you, or do you want it hard copy? What do you prefer, it emailed, or?
Be fine with email.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else, Jasper? Nope. No. Okay, thanks, Jasper.
I guess they'll be getting going again on the project again tomorrow.
Okay.
Again, so.
Well, sounds great.
And Eric will be here the rest of the week, so.
Okay, next one is flooring update on the Memorial Hall.
I looked at your grass.
The gentleman who was going to be doing the sanding on the flooring, he came last week, I believe it was, and they ran into some difficulties with the electrical converter. They needed a 3-phase, we only had a 2-phase. So he had to leave, he didn't have the correct converter, but he'll be back at the end of the month, and they will get that knocked out, and then we'll move forward from there. So it's just a little bit of a delay, a little bit longer than what we had originally anticipated. The hall is still blocked off for the entire month of July, and we might go into August a little bit, but it should be back in order before school starts, when we start using the Memorial Building more.
So there's nothing scheduled in the beginning
There's
of
not.
August?
And I don't think the school's planning on having any volleyball practice or anything in there. they'll probably start using it more once basketball starts. So that's
What we
kind of
see in the
fun.
fall come in, Taekwondo uses it a
Oh,
lot.
yeah, sure.
They come in and then sometimes the little kids basketball use it, but it should be fine, I think, they'll be ready to go.
Okay, request renewal for moving permit?
Colleen Keener had received a building permit and they had some, family issues that have not allowed them to use the permit, so she was just they're good for 30 days, so she was just asking for that to be extended an additional 30 days so they can move the trailer onto the lot. I think they'd like to move it on tomorrow,
Okay.
so she was just requesting a reissue.
Do we have a motion?
I'll motion that we renew her moving permit.
We have a motion, and do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any comments? Reese?
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. And portfolios. Reese?
Tom Neary had given me a call, requesting some maintenance on a sign, on 83 Washburn sign, and so I did agree to that. He said an estimate of about $500 for maintenance on that. Otherwise, just getting adjusted to the portfolios, so work in progress.
Which sign is it? Is it the one up by Senex or?
No, the one south.
Okay. Is he doing the work himself?
No, and I don't believe he's doing it himself.
I think Bob Frank is doing
Okay.
it.
That sounds familiar.
Okay, sounds good. Noel?
I have nothing.
Okay, and I think Jasper pretty much covered all of mine for water and sewer. And bills.
Can I make a comment
Yes.
on the portfolios?
Yeah.
I stopped by about 2 months ago, I stopped by the Attorney General's office because I'm concerned that some members of the commission bring something up on their portfolio that they knew about 2 weeks ago, and they don't put it on the agenda. Therefore, maybe I don't come and attend the meeting because it's not on the agenda, but it's a very important issue.
Okay.
And so, I don't want to cause a problem, but if you know, if something comes up
Yeah.
Sunday or Monday, there's no way, but when stuff comes up that should have been on the agenda,
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. The school board in Grand Forks moved a principal from one school to the other, wasn't on the agenda. The Attorney General put the principal back in the original school till they got it on the agenda. And so I just want you to be aware that it bothers me that I come down and read it and I stay home and I read the paper and holy crap, the whole world blew up.
I think with a lot of it though, is anything that's in the portfolio, we might discuss, but I don't know, we definitely shouldn't have any action on anything in the portfolio that's not on the agenda, correct? Correct? And I'm not quite sure if we
Yeah,
have
we
in the
have
past.
every once in a while.
Have we?
yeah.
Okay. No, that's a good
Well, the
point.
comment from the Attorney General person,
Yeah,
who was an attorney for the Attorney General, because he has several of them,
yeah,
was if there's something that's an important issue that they would be aware of last week,
yeah.
it should be on the agenda, and if it's not, that's not a good situation. So I just wanted to point it out. I'm not,
Yeah, we should definitely not take any action on anything that's not on the agenda, I would assume. I think we can agree on that. Anything else from anyone?
I do.
Okay.
I just have the public hearing for special assessments will be on July 25th at 6:30 at the Memorial Building in the basement. The
What
specials.
time was that again?
6:30. The special assessments will be published in this week's paper and next week's paper for the 2014-2015 project.
Oh, no, I took those out.
No, you did not.
Oh, I had to read through them. Thank you.
The budget, I'm going to, I have the revenue expenditure actuals. I'll mail out the beginning of this week, which I guess now tomorrow would be the middle of the week. So we'll get those out and then we'll go through some of the budget items on July 18th at the city commission meeting.
And then anything that we think should be in the budget, we should just
Mhm.
add it to the budget, just call Joan.
Yep, just email me or call me or whatever, so we can, the more numbers that we can get in advance,
Yeah.
the faster everything goes and it's better. And I will get a list to you as to everything that's under your portfolio,
Sounds good.
the accounts. And that's it.
Okay. Anything else? Then we'll go through the bills. Has everybody had a chance to look at the bills?
Yes.
Do we have a motion?
I'll motion that we pay the bills.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any comments? Reese?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. If there's nothing else, Sharon? We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Less than an hour, you're doing pretty good.